Hi there again. In this tutorial I'm going to explain the trigger system. The trigger system allows you to create more complex mission goals or other fun stuff. There are tiles that generate a trigger signal when a specific event occurs. For example, the orb generates a trigger signal when it's collected. These trigger signals can trigger specific events in other tiles if they are connected to the corresponding fields. Press T to start trigger edit mode. Now you can drag lines connecting triggers to receivers. For example, if I draw an arrow from the orb's trigger to the corresponding receiver of the gate opens when the orb is collected. If the player enters this trigger area, the gate closes again. We now run the mission to see what will happen. As you can see, the gate opens when I collect the orb and closes again when I enter the area behind the gate. A condition is met and an event follows. This is the base concept of the trigger system. There are few special triggers to create more complex systems. I'll explain the most important ones. The wind trigger ends the mission successfully. The start trigger sends a signal at the beginning of the game. The counter trigger is triggered when it receives a certain number of trigger signals. It doesn't matter where the signals come from, only the number is important. After it sends its signals, is reset and waits for the appropriate number of signals again. For example, it's useful for building a round course with a specific number of laps. Something special about this trigger: if its output is connected to a wind trigger, its current count is shown to the player. The group trigger, on the other hand, is only triggered when it receives a signal from all connected triggers at least once. It also resets afterwards, and its count is also shown to the player if it's connected to a wind trigger. The loop trigger sends a signal regularly X times after activation. It sends the first signal right after being activated. The player spawner sends a signal when the player takes off. And the timer trigger sends a signal after a specific time. There's another mechanic that applies to most triggers. If no trigger is connected to its input, it activates itself at the beginning. So this is the same as this. This makes sense as it wouldn't trigger otherwise since it's not turned on. This function makes missions a bit clearer. But it also makes it easy to forget to connect triggers that should be active from the start to a start trigger, when they already have connections. So, for example, in this scenario, you have to add a start trigger here. For the trigger area, it's important to note that it works a bit like an orb. As soon as it triggers because the player enters the area, it sends its trigger signal and then turns off, meaning it doesn't respond to the player entering again. It needs to be reactivated for this. If the player is still in the trigger area when it's reactivated, it will trigger again. To see an example of how to build a racetrack using the trigger system, you can simply load the racetrack template under File, Load Template. Now onto the cannons. The cannon laser can be turned on and off. It can also be aimed at the player or moved back to its starting position. For the cannon plasma, it's similar, except each shot needs to be triggered individually. You can use its trigger signal to indicate that it has fired. You'll discover more triggers on your own, but they should be mostly self-explanatory. Thanks for watching. Have fun building and playing. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact us through one of our channels, such as Discord. We are happy to see you.